The emergency session of the Galactic Coalition Council had been going for 6 hours. Ambassador Henry sat quietly in the human delegation section, watching alien representatives argue in 17 different languages. The translation devices in his ear struggled to keep up. "The Dominion has given us 72 hours, announced Council Chairman, his 4 eyes blinking in distress. "They want the threshold systems and the Minerva belt. If we refuse, they will take them by force." A wave of panic spread through the chamber. The threshold systems bordered human space, but they also held colonies from 4 other coalition species. The Minerva belt contained enough rare metals to power a small empire. "We should negotiate," suggested Ambassador from the delegation. There were peaceful traders who had not fought a war in 3 centuries. "Perhaps we can offer alternative resources." Chairman's tentacles drooped. "They do not negotiate. They demand. Their fleet is already gathering at the border, 200 warships. Our intelligence says they have new plasma weapons that can cut through our shields like paper." Henry raised his hand. The gesture seemed small in the massive council chamber, but Chairman noticed. "The human delegation wishes to speak." Henry stood. He was not tall by human standards, but he carried himself with quiet confidence. "We have faced them before, not in battle but in diplomatic encounters. I have studied their military doctrine." "And what does human study tell us?" asked Ambassador. There was no mockery in his tone, only desperate hope. "They trust their firepower above all else," Henry said. "They believe superior weapons guarantee victory. Their entire strategy is built on overwhelming force." "Which they have," pointed out a delegate from the. "Their ships are 3 times the size of ours. Their weapons are decades ahead of coalition standard. Military analysts give us a 30% chance of survival in direct combat." Henry nodded. "Direct combat would be a mistake. That is why I propose we do not engage them directly." The chamber erupted in confused chatter. Chairman called for silence. "Explain, Ambassador." "Humanity requests permission to lead a specialized strike force. We will use unconventional tactics to disrupt operations and force them to withdraw." The delegates' mandibles clicked in what Henry had learned was their version of laughter. "The human fleet numbers 47 ships. Your largest vessel is smaller than a frigate. Your weapons are adequate but not advanced. What can humanity possibly do against 200 warships?" Henry smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "We can be a honey badger." "A what?" asked Chairman. "A small earth animal. It weighs perhaps 30 pounds. Lions weigh 400 pounds. Leopards weigh 200. Both predators avoid honey badgers." "Why would large predators fear such a small creature?" "Because the honey badger does not care about size or strength. It does not calculate odds. It does not retreat. It fights with absolute commitment, targeting the eyes and soft parts of larger enemies. It causes so much damage that predators decide the fight is not worth the cost." Henry paused. "The honey badger has a reputation. Mess with it and you will regret it even if you win." The council chamber fell silent. Ambassador spoke first. "You propose humanity become this honey badger." "Yes, we will make the regret starting this fight. We will make the cost so high that their firepower advantage becomes meaningless." "The casualty rate would be extreme," warned the delegate. "Yes," Henry agreed simply. "It would be." Chairman studied the human ambassador. "You understand what you are proposing. This is not noble defense. This is deliberate sacrifice." "Earth's history is full of such sacrifices," Henry said. "We are very good at them." The vote took 20 minutes. The coalition approved Honey Badger Protocol by a narrow margin. Many delegates believed it was suicide, but they had no better options. 3 hours later, Commander Jake stood in the briefing room of the UES Defiance, humanity's flagship. Before him sat 72 human officers and 200 volunteers from coalition species who had decided to trust human tactics. Was 43 years old, with gray starting to show in his short hair. He had fought in the border skirmishes against pirate fleets and the Titan Station siege. He had a reputation for winning fights he should have lost. "They have better ships," began without introduction. "Better weapons, better shields, better everything according to the spec sheets." He looked around the room. "Anyone here thinks spec sheets win wars?" Lieutenant Sophie Banks spoke from her seat in the front row. She was second in command, a logistics expert who could organize chaos into efficiency. "Spec sheets tell you what should happen in perfect conditions, sir. Combat is never perfect. Exactly, pulled up a hologram of a battle cruiser. The massive ship rotated slowly in the air. This ship can destroy one of ours in 4 shots, maybe 3. It has redundant systems, heavy armor, and a crew of 3,000. In a straight fight we lose, so we will not fight straight. A pilot named and raised a tentacle. Commander, I volunteered because I believe in this mission, but I do not understand human tactics. They will see us coming. They will target us. They will destroy us. How does dying help us win? Smiled, who said we are going to die? The room fell silent. Well, we probably are, admitted. Most of us anyway, but that is not the point. The point is what we do before we die. He changed the hologram. Now it showed the fleet formation, a standard battle wedge with heavy ships in front and support vessels behind. The fight by the book, every engagement follows doctrine. They position their strongest ships to take fire while their support ships provide covering fire. It is efficient. It is proven. It has worked for them for 200 years. Then how do we beat it? Asked Sergeant Danny Pierce, a special operations veteran with scars on his face from a boarding action gone wrong. We do not beat it, we ignore it. Pulled up a different image. The fleet needs supplies, fuel, ammunition, food, replacement parts. They have supply convoys running from their home systems to the front lines. Those convoys are lightly defended because no one has ever attacked them before. It is not honorable to attack supply ships. Sophie Banks understood immediately. We are not going to fight the fleet, we are going to starve it. Exactly, and while we are doing that, we are going to make them angry. We are going to attack in ways that make no tactical sense. We are going to ignore their battle formations and hit targets they did not think needed defending. We are going to be unpredictable, chaotic, and absolutely relentless. Looked around the room. We are going to be honey badgers. They will adapt, warned a tactical officer. They will learn our patterns. We will not have patterns, said. Each team will operate independently. Each captain will make their own decisions. The only rule is this: make them pay for every inch of space they take. Make them regret coming here. Tech specialist Lisa Grant stood up. She was young, barely 25, but she had already revolutionized human ship design with her modifications. Sir, I have been working on the fleet modifications you requested. The Coalition engineers think I am insane. Are you? Probably. I stripped out half the armor on our fighters, removed secondary systems, cut weight by 40%. The ships are faster now, more maneuverable, but they cannot take many hits. How many hits can they take? 1, maybe 2 if you are lucky. The room shifted uncomfortably, nodded. Good, speed and surprise will protect us better than armor. What else? I modified our torpedo systems. Normal torpedoes lock onto engine signatures. Mine lock onto anything metal and big. I also added proximity charges. If we miss, the explosion might still damage them. Acceptable losses? Asked. Lisa hesitated. 50% of torpedoes will malfunction. The modifications are not stable. But the ones that work will hurt them. Yes, sir, very much. Turned back to the assembled crews. Here is what Command does not want me to tell you. Our mission success rate is calculated at 12%. Our survival rate is calculated at 8%. High Command thinks we are going to die for nothing. He paused, making eye contact with as many people as possible. High Command is thinking like they are thinking about firepower and statistics. They are not thinking about what happens when you corner something small and vicious. They are about to learn something every predator on Earth learned millions of years ago. His voice hardened. Do not fight the honey badger unless you are ready to pay the price. Pilot Officer Chris Yang stood up. He was a fighter ace with 17 confirmed kills. When do we deploy, sir? 48 hours. Use the time to say goodbye to anyone who matters. Write letters. Make peace. When we launch, we are not coming back the same people. Some of us are not coming back at all. Worth it, Chris said simply. Looked at him. Why? Because someone has to show these that humans do not scare easy. Because those colonies in the threshold systems have kids and families who deserve to live without fear. Because if we do not stand up now, we never will. Chris looked around the room. Also, I really want to see the look on faces when our beat-up little ships blow up their fancy cruisers. Laughter rippled through the room. It was dark laughter, but it was real. Dismissed the briefing. As the crews filed out, Sophie Banks approached him. You really think we can win this? She asked quietly. Consider the question. Win is a complicated word, Sophie. Can we destroy the fleet? Probably not. Can we make them leave? Maybe. Can we hurt them badly enough that they think twice before threatening coalition space again? He nodded. Yes, we can do that. At what cost? Everything we have, everything we are. Looked out the viewport at the stars. But that is what Earth taught us, is it not? Survival is not about being the strongest. It is about being too stubborn to quit. Sophie followed his gaze. They think this will be easy. Let them think that, said. Overconfidence is just another weapon we can use against them. 48 hours later, the Honey Badger fleet deployed. 47 human ships and 16 coalition vessels that had volunteered to fight humanity's way. They were small, fast, and armed with weapons that should not work, but did anyway. The training facility orbited a dead moon on the edge of coalition space. Inside, chaos reigned. Sergeant Danny Pierce watched a pilot stumble out of the combat simulator, 3 of his tentacles trembling. The alien's skin had turned a pale blue, which Danny had learned meant extreme distress. I died, they said, his voice shaking. 17 times in 30 minutes. Danny nodded. That is correct. How did you die? Engine failure, life support malfunction, hull breach, enemy fire, debris impact, radiation exposure, computer virus, friendly fire, explosive decompression, power core meltdown, navigation error, collision, ammunition explosion, pilot error, structural collapse, suffocation. And once from an asteroid I did not see. Good memory. Danny pulled up the simulation results. Now tell me, how many times did you complete the mission objective before dying? The pilot hesitated. 14 times. Exactly, you died, but the mission succeeded. That is what matters. This is insane, they protested. We are taught to survive, to retreat when damaged, to preserve our ships and lives for the next battle. Danny sat down next to him. That makes sense when you have resources to spare, when you can build new ships faster than you lose them, when you have backup forces waiting. He looked the alien in his large eyes. We do not have those things. We have 63 ships against 200. We cannot afford to preserve anything. We can only afford to win. By dying. By making our deaths count, Danny corrected. Look, I do not want to die. None of us do. But if I am going to die anyway, I want to take as many with me as possible. I want my death to mean something. There was quiet for a long moment. This is why other species fear humans. We are not scary, Danny said. We are just practical. Across the facility, tech specialist Lisa Grant argued with a coalition engineer. The engineer, a crystalline being named, vibrated with frustration. These modifications will fail, insisted, his crystal body pulsing red. You cannot remove structural supports and expect the ship to survive combat stress. Lisa pointed at her display. I do not expect the ship to survive. I expect it to be fast enough to complete one attack run before it gets destroyed. One run, that is all. That is all we need. Hit hard, hit fast, and if we survive, we do it again. If we do not survive, someone else does it instead. His color shifted to confused purple. But this is wasteful, inefficient. These ships cost millions of credits to build. The ships cost billions, Lisa countered. If I can trade 1 million credit ship for 1 billion credit ship, that is good math. It is suicide. It is war. Lisa softened her tone. Look, I know this goes against everything you were taught. Coalition doctrine is about preservation and careful resource management. That works great when you are fighting pirates or small conflicts. But they are not pirates. They are an empire with more ships, better weapons, and more resources than we could ever match. We cannot outbuild them. We cannot outgun them, so we have to outsmart them and outwork them. By throwing away ships. By using our ships as weapons instead of just platforms for weapons, Lisa explained. Every human fighter is a potential missile. Every frigate is a potential bomb. They do not think like that. Their ships are precious to them. When we start ramming damaged ships into theirs, it will confuse them. Confusion is a weapon too. Slowly shifted to thoughtful yellow. You are saying human tactics are based on acceptable losses that other species would find unacceptable. Now you are getting it. In the flight training section, Pilot Officer Chris Yang led a squadron through asteroid field navigation. 6 human pilots and 4 alien volunteers flew modified fighters through a dense field of spinning rocks. Chris called over the radio, "You are flying like you are scared of dents. Dents do not kill you. Plasma cannons kill you. Stay close to the asteroids. Use them as cover. A pilot's ship clipped a small asteroid and spun out of control. Chris activated his tractor beam and pulled the fighter back into formation. Good hit. Now do it on purpose. You want me to hit asteroids intentionally? The pilot asked, mandibles clicking in confusion. I want you to use everything as a weapon or a shield. That asteroid, put it between you and enemy fire. That debris field, hide in it. That ice comet, crack it open and use the vapor cloud for concealment. Stop thinking like space is empty. Think like it is full of tools you can use. Chris pulled his own fighter into a tight spin, using an asteroid's gravity to slingshot around it at high speed. They have better ships, faster engines, stronger shields, but they fly in open space because their sensors are good enough to see everything. That is fine when everyone fights fair. We are not going to fight fair. He led the squadron deeper into the asteroid field. They will chase us into bad terrain because they think their shields can handle anything. We are going to prove them wrong. We are going to fly where they cannot follow, attack from angles they do not expect, and use the environment against them. One of the human pilots, a young woman named Kelly Price, spoke up. What if they do not chase us? What if they just wait in open space? Then we force them to chase us by hitting targets they have to defend. Supply ships, command vessels, communication relays. We make them choose between protecting their assets and maintaining formation. Kelly laughed, so either way they lose. Either way we make them uncomfortable, Chris corrected. Uncomfortable enemies make mistakes. Lieutenant Sophie Banks ran the logistics section like a military operation, which made sense because it was one. She stood before a holographic display showing supply routes, fuel calculations, and ammunition counts. We have enough torpedo ammunition for 4 major engagements, she told Commander. After that, we are down to conventional weapons only. Studied the display. Then we make those 4 engagements count. What about fuel? If we use standard patrol patterns, we have 6 weeks of operation. If we use combat speeds and evasive maneuvers constantly, we have 9 days. 9 days is all we need, said. Either we break them in 9 days or we are already broken. Sophie nodded. She had learned not to argue with when he used that tone. What about casualties, medical supplies? Assume 50% casualties in the first 3 days. After that, assume we lose 10% per day until the mission ends. Sophie ran the numbers. That means we are all dead or wounded by day 12. Sounds about right, agreed. Make sure medical knows, and Sophie, make sure every ship has enough pain medication. If someone is dying, I want them comfortable. Yes, sir, Sophie hesitated. Do you really think we can win this? Looked at her. I think we can make the wish they never started this. That is close enough to winning for me. 3 days before deployment, gathered the entire Honey Badger force in the main hangar. 620 people filled the space. Humans, and a handful of other coalition species who had volunteered to learn human tactics. You all know the plan, began. We deploy in scattered groups. Each team picks its own targets. Each captain makes their own decisions. The only communication between teams will be position updates every 6 hours. They cannot predict what they cannot track. He pulled up a star map. The fleet is here advancing toward the threshold systems. They expect us to meet them in battle. We are not going to do that. Team 1 will hit their fuel depot here. Team 2 will ambush this supply convoy. Team 3 will attack their shipyard. Teams 4 through 8 will harass their advance fleet with hit-and-run attacks. The goal is not to destroy them. The goal is to make them angry and confused. An engineer raised a tentacle. Commander, this violates every principle of military strategy I have learned. We are dividing our already small force into even smaller pieces that could destroy us one group at a time. They could, agreed, but they would have to find us first, and while they are looking for us, we are destroying their infrastructure. The Think War is about big battles and big ships. We are going to teach them that war is about logistics, morale, and who is willing to pay the highest price. Danny Pierce stood up. Sir, I trained most of these people. They are ready. They know they might die. They know the odds. They are coming anyway. Nodded. I know. That is why we are going to win. Not because we are stronger or smarter, but because when they calculate acceptable losses, they think about ships and resources. When we calculate acceptable losses, we include ourselves in the equation. That is the difference between fighting to win and fighting to survive. Chris Yang raised his hand. What happens if a team gets captured? Standard protocol, you know nothing useful. Each team only knows their own mission. You cannot tell what you do not know. And if they torture us? His expression hardened. Then you remember that every minute you resist is another minute for the rest of us to complete our missions. You remember that your pain is buying time for your friends. You remember that humans do not break easy. The hangar fell silent. These were not comfortable words, but they were honest ones. Lisa Grant broke the tension. Sir, I have one question. What do we do if something actually goes right? Laughter rippled through the crowd, smiled. If something goes right, we enjoy it for 5 seconds and then find the next target. There are 200 ships out there. We have plenty of work to do. Sophie Banks stepped forward. All teams, final equipment checks in 6 hours. Briefings with your team leaders in 12 hours. Deployment in 72 hours. Make your peace, write your letters, and get some sleep. We are about to become very famous or very dead. Probably both, someone called out, and the hangar filled with dark laughter. As the crowd dispersed, watch them go. Young and old, human and alien, veteran and rookie. None of them had to be here. They had all volunteered. Danny Pierce approached him. They are ready, Jake. I know. They trust you. I know that too, looked at his old friend. I just hope I am right about this. You are, Danny said with certainty. They think firepower wins wars, but Earth taught us different. Earth taught us that the survivors are not the strongest. They are the ones too stubborn to quit. Smiled, then let us go teach thee about honey badgers. 72 hours later, the honey badger fleet scattered into the darkness of space. 63 ships flying in 17 different directions, each team heading toward their assigned targets. Supreme Commander or watched his sensors track the chaotic deployment and felt confusion for the first time in his military career. This was not how battles worked. Fleets were supposed to group together for mutual support. These humans were intentionally dividing themselves. It made no sense, but then again, humans rarely made sense to thinking. The fuel depot at Station Gamma 7 had operated for 15 years without incident. It was deep in territory, far from any conflict zone. The station commander did not even bother to maintain full shields. Why waste power protecting something no one would dare attack? At 400 station time, 5 human ships dropped out of hyperspace at maximum speed. They did not slow down. They did not hail the station. They simply opened fire with everything they had. Team 1, led by Lieutenant Sophie Banks, hit the fuel storage tanks with modified torpedoes. The explosions were small at first, just punctures in the massive tanks. Then the fuel ignited. The station did not explode dramatically like in entertainment vids. It simply came apart, torn into pieces by expanding fire and escaping atmosphere. Hundreds of thousands of tons of fuel vaporized in seconds. Sophie watched her tactical display as her ships raced away from the growing fireball. All teams report. Team 1-2 clean hit, 0 damage. Team 1-3 minor hull scoring, still flight capable. Team 1-4 took a hit from station defense guns. Engines at 60%, can make rendezvous. Team 1-5, static filled the channel. Sophie watched the tactical display as the 5th ship's icon flickered and disappeared. Commander Martinez and his crew of 8 were gone. Confirmed kill on Team 1-5, Sophie said quietly. Mark it in the log. She turned her ship toward the next jump point. They had destroyed enough fuel to power the advance fleet for 2 weeks. The cost was 1 ship and 8 lives. By the cold math of war, it was a good trade. Sophie hated the math. 2 systems away, pilot officer Chris Yang led his squadron through the supply convoy like wolves through sheep. 6 fighters against 12 cargo haulers and 4 escort frigates. The frigates reacted exactly as Chris predicted. They moved to protect the cargo ships, forming a defensive screen. It was good doctrine. It was also exactly what Chris wanted. All wings, ignore the escorts, hit the cargo ships and keep moving. His squadron split into pairs and dove toward the convoy from 3 different angles. The escorts tried to intercept, but they could not be everywhere at once. Chris's modified fighters were simply too fast. Kelly Price put 2 torpedoes into a cargo ship's engine section. The ship did not explode, just went dark and began drifting. Chris grinned. Disabled ships were better than destroyed ones. They needed rescue, which tied up more resources. Price, nice shot. Form on me, second pass. They swung around for another attack. This time the escorts were ready. Plasma fire filled space around the human fighters. One of Chris's pilots took a direct hit. The fighter shattered into debris. Davis is down, someone reported. I saw it, Chris said. Stay focused, hit the targets and get out. 3 more cargo ships went dark before the escorts finally got their shields organized. Chris called the retreat. His squadron jumped away, leaving 8 cargo ships disabled and 1 destroyed. They lost 1 fighter. The pilot's name was Gregory Davis. He was 23 years old and had joined the service 6 months ago. Chris would write a letter to his family later. Right now, he had to get his remaining pilots to safety. At the military shipyard in the Terminus system, Sergeant Danny Pierce's team executed the most dangerous mission of the day. They did not attack from space. They infiltrated as a civilian repair crew and planted explosives inside the shipyard's reactor core. Danny and his team of 6 had studied civilian procedures for months. They knew how workers moved, how they talked, how they thought. The disguises were crude, just holographic projectors that made them look vaguely shaped from a distance. It should not have worked, but the shipyard workers did not expect enemy infiltrators this deep in their own territory. The humans moved through the facility with practiced calm, planting charges at structural weak points. Last charge set, whispered Corporal Lee, the team's demolition expert. Timer set for 30 minutes. We need to leave now. They walked toward the exit like workers finishing a shift. Danny's heart pounded, but his face remained calm. Just a few more minutes and they would be clear. Then a supervisor called out in their language. You there? Your shift does not end for 2 more hours. Where are you going? Danny turned and spoke in, using phrases he had memorized phonetically. Emergency call, reactor fluctuation in Section 9. The supervisor's eye stalks narrowed with suspicion. I received no alert about reactor issues. Danny knew the mission was compromised. He also knew they were too close to the explosives to abort. He smiled and did the most human thing possible. He attacked. The fight was short and brutal, 6 humans against 20 workers. Danny's team had training and desperation. They had surprise and numbers. The humans won, but not cleanly. Lee took a tool to the head and went down. Danny dragged him toward the exit while his team provided covering fire. Alarms shrieked through the facility. Security forces were coming. Plant the last charges on the exits, Danny ordered. Blow them when security gets close. We need to buy time. His team rigged the corridor with their remaining explosives. When security forces rushed through, the explosions collapsed the passage. It would not stop them for long, but it did not need to. The reactor charges detonated 23 minutes early. Someone must have found them and tried to disarm them. The result was the same. The shipyard's power core went critical. Danny and his team were 500 meters from the facility when it exploded. The blast wave caught their shuttle and sent it spinning. Danny fought the controls as metal debris punched through the hull. We are venting atmosphere. Seal your suits. They made it to space, but the shuttle was dying. Life support failed. Navigation was offline. They were drifting in territory with security forces closing in. This is Team 7, Danny transmitted on the emergency channel. Mission successful, shipyard destroyed, we need immediate extraction. Static answered him. They were too deep in enemy space for coalition ships to reach them quickly. Lee groaned in the back of the shuttle. His helmet was cracked and blood floated in the zero gravity. Danny knew his friend was dying. Anyone got ideas? Danny asked his team. No one answered. They all knew they were not getting out of this one. Then a new voice crackled over the radio. Team 7, this is the UES Defiance. We read you. Hold position. We are coming. Danny laughed. It was a slightly crazy sound. Commander, you are supposed to be 3 systems away. Plans change, replied. We tracked your transponder, ETA 12 minutes. Try not to die before then. We will do our best. Ship arrived in 9 minutes, not 12. The Defiance dropped out of hyperspace with shields at maximum, grabbed the damaged shuttle with a tractor beam, and jumped away before reinforcements could arrive. Danny stumbled onto the Defiance's bridge, half-carrying Lee. We destroyed the shipyard. It is gone. I know, said. I saw the explosion from 2 systems away. Good work. Lee needs medical now. Was already calling for medics. They took Lee away on a stretcher. Danny stood there, still wearing his damaged suit, watching his friend disappear through the door. "How many ships were in that shipyard?" Danny asked quietly. 37 said, "Under construction, all destroyed." "We lost Davis from Chris's team. Lee might not make it. Martinez and his whole crew are gone." Danny's hands shook. "Was it worth it?" Put a hand on his shoulder. "I do not know yet. Ask me when this is over." Across space, Supreme Commander stared at the damage reports with growing fury. In 6 hours, the humans had destroyed a fuel depot, disabled a supply convoy, and eliminated a major shipyard. His advance fleet was untouched, but its support infrastructure was crippled. "How did they penetrate this deep into our territory?" he demanded. His tactical officer studied the reports. "They are not fighting as a unified fleet, Supreme Commander. They split into small groups and attacked multiple targets simultaneously. Our defense forces could not respond to all threats at once. Then we pull ships from the advance fleet to protect our rear areas. That will weaken our main battle force." "It does not matter," Orr said. "We still outnumber them 10-1. Even with these losses, our firepower advantage is overwhelming." He studied the tactical map. "Where is the human main fleet?" "We do not know. They have not gathered in any one location. Our sensors track individual ships, but no fleet formations." Orr felt a flicker of unease. This was not how warfare worked. Fleets were supposed to concentrate force, not scatter it. "What are the humans planning?" His tactical officer had no answer. The attacks continued for 3 days. Convoys got ambushed. Communication relays went dark. Supply depots exploded. The human ships appeared, struck hard, and vanished before forces could respond. Or diverted 40 ships from his advance fleet to protect supply lines. Then 60. Then 80. His overwhelming numerical advantage was evaporating as he spread forces across dozens of systems. And still the humans kept coming. On day 4, Orr received a message. It was from Commander Jake, transmitted on an open channel so everyone could hear. "Supreme Commander Orr, you have superior ships, better weapons, and more resources than we could ever match. You came here expecting an easy victory. You were wrong." The message continued. "We are honey badgers. You do not know what that means yet, but you will learn. We do not care about your firepower. We do not care about your numbers. We do not care if we die. We only care about making you regret starting this fight." Or killed the transmission. His officers watched him nervously. "Send a message to all forces," Orr ordered. "Total alert status. Maximum shields at all times. No ship travels alone. We end this now." He pulled up the tactical map and pointed at the threshold systems. "The humans are trying to slow us down. It will not work. We advance. We take the threshold systems by force. Once we control coalition territory, the humans will have to face us directly." His tactical officer hesitated. "Supreme Commander, our supply situation is becoming critical. We have fuel for perhaps 2 more weeks at combat speeds. The destroyed depot and damaged convoys have created shortages." "Then we take what we need from coalition systems," Orr said. "We are the Dominion. We do not ask permission." The advance fleet moved forward. 120 warships, still a massive force. Orr watched his sensors and waited for the humans to make their mistake. They had to defend the threshold systems eventually. When they did, he would crush them with firepower they could not match. Orr was counting on human desperation to force a battle. What he did not understand was that humans were not desperate yet. They were just getting started. Commander reviewed the casualty reports on the Defiance. 13 ships lost, 97 personnel dead, 234 wounded. In 4 days of fighting, they had lost nearly 20% of their force. "We cannot sustain these losses," Sophie Banks said quietly. She stood beside's chair on the bridge, studying the same numbers. "We do not have to," replied. "We just have to sustain them longer than they can sustain their supply problems." "That is cold math." "War is cold," looked at her. "But they are slowing down or pulled 80 ships from his advance fleet to protect his supply lines. That means we are winning." "It does not feel like winning when we lose people every day." Nodded. "I know, but look at what we have accomplished. 37 ships destroyed in the shipyard. Thousands of tons of fuel gone. Supply convoys disrupted. They are scared, Sophie. They are changing their tactics to counter us. That means we are in their head." Command ship Eternal Glory was the pride of their fleet. 5 kilometers long, armed with enough weapons to level a moon, protected by shields that could withstand sustained bombardment from a dozen warships. Supreme Commander or commanded from its bridge, surrounded by the finest technology engineering could provide. Commander Jake studied the massive ship on his tactical display and smiled. That is our target. Sophie Banks stared at him. You want to attack the single most heavily defended ship in the fleet, the one surrounded by 30 escort vessels. I want to board it, corrected. The bridge of the UES Defiance fell silent. Even the tactical officer stopped his work to stare at the human commander. That is impossible, they said. The Eternal Glory has active countermeasures against boarding parties, automated defense turrets in every corridor, 3,000 Marines. We would need an army to take that ship. Good thing we are not trying to take it, said. We just need to visit. He pulled up schematics that Lisa Grant had compiled from intelligence reports. The Eternal Glory's layout appeared in the hologram, highlighting several key sections. The ship's power distribution runs through central nodes here, and here. If we can plant charges on just 2 nodes, we can cripple their main systems for approximately 40 minutes. 40 minutes is not enough time to capture a ship, Sophie pointed out. We are not capturing it. We are embarrassing it. Zoomed in on the bridge section. While the ship is dark, a small team will reach the bridge and transmit a message on all military channels. We will show every ship that humans can reach anywhere, even the heart of their command vessel. Danny Pierce understood immediately. Psychological warfare, we prove they are not safe anywhere. Exactly. They believe in absolute security through superior firepower. We are going to teach them that no amount of guns can stop someone who does not care about dying. Lisa Grant pulled up her own calculations. I can modify boarding pods to punch through their hull. The pods will be one way only, no retrieval. Casualty rate, asked. 100%. Anyone who goes on this mission is not coming back. The bridge fell silent again, nodded slowly. Then we need volunteers who understand what they are signing up for. Sophie stepped forward. I will lead the boarding team. No, said immediately. Why not? You need someone who can navigate ship systems, someone who knows the mission plan inside and out, someone the crew trusts. Sophie looked him in the eye. That is me. You are my second in command. I need you here. You need this mission to succeed more than you need me on this bridge. Sophie's voice was firm. I am going, Jake. You cannot talk me out of it. Studied her face for a long moment, then he nodded. Fine, pick your team, 8 people maximum. That is all the boarding pods can carry. Danny Pierce stepped forward. I am going. Danny, you do not have to do this. Yes, I do. Sophie will need someone who has done boarding actions before. That is me, Danny grinned. Besides, I always wanted to see a command ship from the inside. Over the next hour, 6 more volunteers stepped forward. Kelly Price, the young pilot who wanted to prove herself. Corporal Lee, who had recovered enough from his injuries to demand a chance at payback. 4 others, each with their own reasons for accepting a suicide mission. Lisa Grant worked through the night modifying the boarding pods. She stripped out safety systems, navigation computers, and life support reserves. The pods became simple metal shells with just enough thrust to punch through the Eternal Glory's hull. These will get you there, Lisa told Sophie. But they will not get you back. Once you launch, you are committed. Sophie nodded. I understand. Do you? Lisa looked at her seriously. You are going to die on that ship, Sophie, probably in the next few hours. Are you really okay with that? Sophie considered the question. I grew up hearing stories about Earth, how dangerous it was, how everything tried to kill us. My grandmother used to say that humans learned courage because we had no other choice. If we did not face our fears, we died. She looked at the boarding pod. I am scared, Lisa, but I am going anyway. That is what humans do. 2 days later, the trap was set. Chris Yang's fighter squadron performed a series of obvious attacks on patrol ships near the Eternal Glory's position. The attacks were just successful enough to be annoying but not devastating. Or took the bait. He ordered his command ship to relocate to a more secure position, deeper in controlled space. The move required jumping through a debris field from an ancient battle. What Orr did not know was that teams had seeded that debris field with specialized equipment. As the Eternal Glory passed through, its shields flickered for 0.3 seconds, disrupted by harmonic frequencies that Lisa Grant had calculated perfectly. Point 0.3 seconds was all Sophie needed. 8 boarding pods launched from hidden positions in the debris. They accelerated to incredible speeds, far faster than safety protocols allowed. The pods were going so fast that if they missed the target, they would simply disintegrate in space. They did not miss. The pods hit the Eternal Glory's hull like bullets, punching through armor and inner bulkheads. Sophie's pod came to rest embedded in a service corridor. She kicked open the hatch and rolled out, weapon ready. Alarms shrieked throughout the ship. Security forces were already responding. Sophie had perhaps 2 minutes before they arrived in force. Team 2 status, she called over the tactical channel. Team 2 is in, heading to power node Beta. Team 3 is in, moving to node Delta. Team 4, static. Team 4's pod had hit a reinforced bulkhead. Everyone inside was dead. Sophie pushed down her grief. Teams 2 and 3, you have 90 seconds. Plant the charges and get to extraction points. She knew there were no extraction points. The charges were set to detonate in 3 minutes, and there was no way to get off the ship before then. But her team did not need to know that yet. Danny Pierce led Team 2 through corridors that were not designed for creatures his size, were taller and thinner than humans. The passages felt cramped and wrong. His team moved fast, following the route Lisa had programmed into their helmet displays. They reached power node Beta and found it guarded by automated turrets. The turrets opened fire immediately. Corporal Lee threw a shaped charge that destroyed 2 turrets, but the explosion also collapsed part of the corridor. We are cut off from the planned route, Danny reported. Finding alternate path. Negative, Sophie transmitted. No time. Plant the charge at your current location and move to secondary objective. Danny understood. The mission had just changed from crippling the ship to maximum damage. He armed the charge and set it for 2 minutes. Charge planted, moving out. Sophie's team reached the bridge section. She had 6 people left from her original 8. The bridge doors were massive, designed to withstand direct hits from ship weapons. There was no way through. Lisa, please tell me you have a solution, Sophie said into her radio. Back on the Defiance, Lisa Grant's fingers flew across her console. I am accessing their door controls now. Give me 30 seconds. Security forces rounded the corner behind Sophie's team. Plasma fire filled the corridor. Kelly Price took a hit to the shoulder and went down. Sophie dragged her behind cover and returned fire. Lisa, we do not have 30 seconds. I know, I am working on it. The security door began to open. Not all the way, just enough for Sophie to throw a flash charge through the gap. The charge detonated on the bridge, blinding everyone inside for precious seconds. Sophie's team rushed through. The bridge was huge, filled with command consoles and tactical displays. Officers stumbled around, temporarily blinded, reaching for weapons. Sophie went straight for the main communication console. She plugged in the data module Lisa had prepared and activated it. Immediately, every military channel received the same transmission. It was simple, just footage from Sophie's helmet camera showing human soldiers standing on the bridge of the Eternal Glory. In the background, alarms blared and officers shouted in confusion. Sophie spoke directly into the camera. This is Lieutenant Sophie Banks of the human military. We are standing on your command ship's bridge. Your security could not stop us. Your weapons could not stop us. Your shields and armor could not stop us. She paused. We are honey badgers. We go where we want. We do what we want. And if you threaten our allies again, we will show you that this was the easy version. The transmission lasted 15 seconds. It reached every ship in the fleet, every officer, every soldier. The psychological impact was devastating. On his own bridge, Supreme Commander watched the transmission with disbelief turning to rage. Security, retake the bridge immediately, kill the intruders. But Sophie's team was already moving. They had 90 seconds before the charges detonated. Not enough time to escape, but enough time to make it hurt. Danny Pierce led his team into the ship's main reactor control room. He armed every explosive they had left and set them all to detonate simultaneously. Then he transmitted on the emergency channel one last time. This is Sergeant Danny Pierce. If anyone is listening, tell the honey badger bites back. Tell him we made it count. Or security forces breached the bridge just as Sophie's team reached the emergency escape pods. Not the kind that could survive in space, just the internal kind for moving between ship sections. Sophie shoved Kelly Price into a pod. "Get as far from the bridge as possible," Sophie ordered. "Maybe you will survive the explosions." "What about you?" Kelly asked. "I am staying to make sure the transmission keeps broadcasting." Sophie sealed the pod and launched it. She knew Kelly would not survive. The explosions were too big, but hope was a powerful thing. Sophie turned to face the security forces. She had no ammunition left, just a combat knife and a smile. "Come on then," she said. "Let me show you what a human looks like up close." They hesitated. This small human female was smiling at them, smiling while standing on their bridge, surrounded by their soldiers with no escape possible. It was terrifying. Then the charges detonated, all of them throughout the ship. Power nodes exploded. The reactor went into emergency shutdown. The bridge lost gravity as systems failed. The eternal glory, the pride of the fleet, went dark. Commander watched from the Defiance as the massive command ship's lights flickered and died. He knew Sophie was gone. Danny was gone. All 8 volunteers were gone. But he also knew they had succeeded. Every ship in the fleet had seen humans board their most secure vessel. Every officer had watched their supreme commander's bridge get invaded. The message was clear. Nowhere was safe, not even the heart of their fleet. "Sir, fleet is breaking formation," reported the tactical officer. "Multiple ships are powering up shields to maximum and increasing spacing between vessels." Nodded, they were scared. They were wasting power maintaining shields at full strength, burning through fuel reserves faster. They were spreading their fleet out, which made coordination harder. Fear was a weapon, and Sophie had just delivered it perfectly. "All Honey Badger teams, this is. Phase 2 is complete. Begin Phase 3 operations. Hit them while they are confused." Across space, human teams launched simultaneous attacks. Supply convoys got ambushed. Communication relays went dark. Patrol ships disappeared without a trace. Or sat in his backup command center, watching his fleet fall apart. The humans had not destroyed the eternal glory, but they had proven they could. They had walked onto his bridge, transmitted their message, and died laughing. For the first time in his military career, or felt fear. These humans did not fight like any enemy he had ever faced. They did not retreat when damaged. They did not surrender when outnumbered. They died with smiles on their faces, knowing their death served a purpose. "How did you fight an enemy like that?" "Sir, fuel reserves are at critical levels," his tactical officer reported. "We have enough for perhaps 4 more days of combat operations." Or studied the tactical map. His fleet was scattered, defending against threats that appeared everywhere and nowhere. His supply lines were in chaos. His soldiers were exhausted and scared. He had come here expecting an easy victory against a primitive species with inferior ships. Instead, he had found an enemy that turned every disadvantage into a weapon. "Contact the Coalition Council," or said quietly. "Open negotiations for withdrawal." His officers stared at him in shock. "Sir, we still have numerical superiority. We still have better weapons." "And the humans still do not care," or replied. "They will keep coming. They will keep dying. They will keep making us pay for every inch of space until we have nothing left but damaged ships and broken morale." He stood up. "I will not sacrifice this fleet for territory that costs this much to hold." The order went out. The fleet began withdrawing from Coalition space. On the Defiance received the news with quiet satisfaction. They had won, not by destroying the fleet, but by making them decide the fight was not worth continuing. He thought about Sophie, Danny, and all the others who had died to make this victory possible. Their names would be remembered. Their sacrifice would mean something. Activated the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is the commander. They are withdrawing. We won." Cheers erupted throughout the Honey Badger fleet, but was not done. "We paid a heavy price for this victory. 13 ships, 197 people. Each one of them died knowing they were protecting something bigger than themselves." Paused. "We are Honey Badgers, small, outmatched, and absolutely relentless. Today we proved that courage and determination can beat superior firepower. Today we showed the galaxy that humans do not give up, no matter the odds." He closed his eyes for a moment, thinking of Sophie's smile and Danny's laugh. 6 months after the withdrawal, Commander Jake stood in the Coalition Council chamber again. This time he was not asking for permission. He was receiving recognition. Chairman approached with a medal made from crystallized light, a rare honor in Coalition culture. Commander, on behalf of the Galactic Coalition, we present you with the Star of Valor for your leadership during the conflict. Accepted the medal but did not smile. This honor belongs to the 197 people who did not come home. They are the real heroes. We honor them as well, Chairman said. But you led them. You showed the galaxy that courage can overcome firepower. You changed how we think about warfare. Looked around the council chamber. Representatives from dozens of species watched him with expressions ranging from respect to awe to fear. He understood why. Humans had proven they were willing to die for causes they believed in. That made them powerful allies and terrifying enemies. They taught us an important lesson, said. They trusted their superior weapons and technology. They believed firepower guaranteed victory. They were wrong. War is not won by the side with the best guns. It is won by the side that wants victory more. Ambassador Henry stood beside. He had been working non-stop since the withdrawal, helping to reshape coalition military doctrine. The Council has voted to establish permanent honey badger divisions within the coalition fleet, mixed species units trained in human unconventional warfare tactics. Who will lead these divisions? Asked the representative. We have candidates from several successful teams, Henry said. Pilot Officer Chris Yang will command the 1st Honey Badger Flight Wing. Tech Specialist Lisa Grant will oversee equipment development and modification. Corporal Lee has been promoted to sergeant and will train new boarding action specialists. Felt pride hearing those names. Chris had become a legend among fighter pilots. Lisa's modifications were now standard on coalition fast-attack ships. Lee had survived his injuries and insisted on returning to active duty. But he also felt the absence of those who were gone. Sophie would never see the fruit of her sacrifice. Danny would never train another class of soldiers. The 197 would never know how much they had changed the galaxy. After the ceremony, walked through the memorial garden that the coalition had built. 197 trees, each one representing a life lost during the Honey Badger campaign. Plaques with names and brief descriptions. He stopped at Sophie's tree. It was a small earth oak transplanted from her. The plaque read, Lieutenant Sophie Banks, leader, warrior, friend. She showed the galaxy that courage lives in actions, not words. You did it, Sophie, said quietly. You scared them so badly they still have not returned to this sector. He moved to Danny's tree, a tough scrub brush from the Australian outback. You crazy son of a gun. You always said you wanted to go out doing something that mattered. Well, you did. Spent an hour visiting each tree. Each name, each story. By the time he finished, the twin suns were setting. Chris Yang found him there. The young pilot had changed in 6 months. He carried himself with more confidence now, but also with the weight of command. He understood what it meant to send people into danger. Sir, the new recruits are waiting for your speech. Followed Chris to the training facility. It had expanded since the conflict. Where once there had been room for 60 trainees, now there were facilities for 600. Species from across the coalition wanted to learn human tactics. The recruits stood in formation. Humans and a dozen other species, even 3 who had defected after witnessing the Honey Badger campaign. Looked at them and saw himself 6 months ago preparing to lead people into impossible odds. You all volunteered for Honey Badger training, began. That means you have heard the stories. You know what happened to the original teams. You know the casualty rates. He paused. Some of you probably think you are ready to die like the heroes did. You are wrong. The recruits shifted uncomfortably. The goal of Honey Badger tactics is not to die heroically. The goal is to win while making the enemy pay such a high price that they regret starting the fight. Sometimes that requires sacrifice. Sometimes it requires doing things that seem insane. But it always requires thinking differently than your enemy expects. He pulled up a hologram showing the eternal glory. Lieutenant Sophie Banks led 8 people onto this ship knowing they would not come back, but she did not throw their lives away. Every step of that mission had a purpose. Cripple the power systems, transmit the message, prove that humans could reach anywhere. The sacrifice mattered because it achieved something important. Change the hologram to show current coalition fleet deployments. Today, they maintain a border with us, but they do not cross it. They learned that fighting humans costs more than any territory is worth. Other potential enemies watched what happened and reconsidered their plans. That is the real victory, not the battles we fought, but the battles we prevented. A young recruit raised a tentacle. Commander, I am scared. I volunteered because I believe in this mission, but I am afraid I will panic when the fighting starts. Nodded. Good. Fear is healthy. Fear keeps you sharp. The original Honey Badger teams were all scared. Sophie was terrified when she boarded that ship. Danny told me he nearly threw up before every mission. He smiled. Being brave does not mean you are not scared. It means you do what needs to be done despite being scared. Over the next weeks, watched the new recruits train. They struggled with the same concepts that had challenged the original teams, fighting in damaged ships, accepting high casualty rates, thinking creatively instead of following doctrine. But slowly, they began to understand. A pilot learned to use asteroids as weapons. A human engineer found new ways to modify ships for speed over protection. A defector taught his team how to exploit weaknesses in tactical thinking. Lisa Grant approached during one training session. The modifications are working better than expected. We have reduced malfunction rates on the modified torpedoes to 30%. That is a significant improvement. It is also not good enough. 30% failure rate means people die because their weapons do not work. Lisa looked frustrated. Sophie died making sure the mission succeeded. I want to honor that by making sure fewer people have to make the same sacrifice. Keep working on it, said. Every improvement saves lives, that matters. 3 months into the new training program, word came of a new threat. The swarm, a hive mind species, had begun absorbing coalition colony worlds on the far edge of their territory. They did not negotiate. They did not retreat. They simply consumed everything in their path. The Coalition Council convened emergency sessions. Military analysts calculated they had numerical superiority of at least 5-1. Their ships were biological constructs that could repair damage and adapt to enemy weapons. Chairman looked exhausted. We face another impossible fight. Do we have another miracle ready? Henry stood. We have something better than miracles. We have honey badgers. The 1st Honey Badger Division deployed to face with Chris Yang in command. Watched the tactical displays as 60 ships moved to intercept a force of 300 bioships. They attacked in swarms, overwhelming targets with numbers. Coalition doctrine called for defensive formations and mutual support. The Honey Badgers ignored doctrine. Chris split his forces into individual hunting packs. Each pack targeted support vessels, the ones that provided resources to the main swarm. While they focused on coalition defensive lines, human ships slipped through gaps and destroyed supply ships. They adapted, redirecting forces to protect their support vessels. Chris adapted faster, switching targets to communication nodes, then to reproduction ships, then back to supplies. Watched the battle and saw Sophie's influence. The constant attacks from unexpected angles, the willingness to take losses to achieve objectives, the absolute refusal to fight the enemy's preferred battle. After 18 hours of continuous combat, the swarm, they had superior numbers but could not sustain operations without their support infrastructure. 42 Honey Badger ships survived out of 60. The casualties were heavy, but the mission succeeded. Chris transmitted from his damaged fighter. Sir, we did it. They are retreating. Good work. Return to base for repairs. Actually, sir, we are pursuing. While they are disorganized, we can hit their staging areas. Smiled. Chris had learned the lesson well. Never give the enemy time to recover. Approved. But Chris, do not get yourself killed. Sophie and Danny would never forgive me if I let that happen. Understood, sir. We will be careful. Well, careful by Honey Badger standards. The threat continued for months, but the pattern was established. Each time they attacked, Honey Badger divisions struck back with unconventional tactics that disrupted their operations. The hive mind struggled to predict human behavior because human behavior was intentionally unpredictable. Other coalition species began adopting Honey Badger principles, not just in military operations, but in how they approached problems. When faced with superior opposition, they looked for unexpected solutions. When conventional tactics failed, they tried unconventional ones. 1 year after the withdrawal, retired from active military service. He was only 44, but the weight of command had aged him. He had sent too many people to their deaths. He needed rest. At his retirement ceremony, representatives from every coalition species attended. Even a delegation came, led by former Supreme Commander or or approached with obvious discomfort. "Commander, I came to express my respect. You defeated me not with superior weapons, but with superior will. That is a lesson I will never forget." "You could have kept fighting," said. "Your fleet still had advantages." But my soldiers had lost the will to continue. They saw humans board the eternal glory and realized that no defense was perfect. They saw humans die laughing and realized they were fighting an enemy that did not fear death. Or's eye stalks lowered in what had learned was a gesture of respect. They prided themselves on their firepower. "You taught us that firepower means nothing against determination." After Or left, Henry joined on the observation deck. They looked out at the stars where so many had fought and died. "The Honey Badger divisions are requesting you stay on as an advisor," Henry said. "I am tired, Henry. I need time away from death and tactics." "I understand. But before you go, I want you to know something. The galaxy has changed because of what you did. Species that relied on military superiority now think twice before starting conflicts. Weaker species know they can defend themselves with courage and creativity. You gave the galaxy hope." Thought about Sophie's smile, Danny's laugh, and all the others who had given everything. The price was high. It always is, but they paid it willingly, knowing what they were protecting. Nodded slowly. "Make sure the new Honey Badger divisions remember that. Victory is not measured in enemy ships destroyed or territory taken. It is measured in lives protected and freedoms preserved. If we ever start fighting just to win, we become no better than the we defeated." "I will make sure they remember." Spent his retirement writing. He documented every battle, every tactic, every lesson learned during the Honey Badger campaign. But more importantly, he wrote about the people. Sophie's determination, Danny's humor, Chris's skill, Lisa's brilliance. The 197 names that deserved to be remembered. The book became required reading at every coalition military academy, not because it taught tactics, though it did, but because it taught something more important. It taught that courage was not about being fearless. It was about doing what needed to be done despite fear. 5 years after the withdrawal, received word that the Honey Badger Memorial Garden was being expanded. New trees for those lost in the conflicts and other battles. The price of peace continued to accumulate. He traveled to the memorial and walked among the trees. Some were tall now, others still young. Each one represented a person who had faced impossible odds and chosen to fight anyway. A young pilot approached him. She was human, barely 20 years old, wearing the Honey Badger Division patch on her uniform. "Excuse me, are you commander?" "Just now, I am retired." "I am Lieutenant Amy Foster. I just graduated from the academy. My instructor said I should visit the memorial before my first deployment." She looked at the trees. "Did you know all these people?" "Some of them, the rest I wish I had known." Amy walked to one of the newer trees. "This one is my uncle. He died defending a colony from raiders. The mission report says he kept fighting even after his ship was disabled. He used the emergency thrusters to ram the raider flagship." She touched the plaque. "I want to make him proud." Looked at her young face and saw himself 6 years ago, full of determination, ready to face anything, not yet understanding the weight of loss. The best way to honor him is to remember why he fought. Not for glory, not for revenge, but to protect people who could not protect themselves. If you keep that in mind, you will make him proud. Amy nodded. "I will, thank you, sir." Watched her walk away and felt a mixture of pride and sadness. The Honey Badger legacy would continue. Young people would keep volunteering. Some would die. Some would survive. All would carry forward the lesson that determination could overcome firepower. He sat down beneath Sophie's tree and closed his eyes. The wind rustled through the leaves, carrying the sound of distant voices. Or maybe it was just his imagination. Either way was content. The Honey Badgers had changed the galaxy. They had proven that being small did not mean being weak. That having inferior weapons did not mean accepting defeat. That sometimes the fiercest creature was not the biggest or strongest, but the one that simply refused to quit. Somewhere in the galaxy, another threat would emerge. Another enemy would trust their firepower and make the mistake of underestimating human determination. And when they did, they would learn what they had learned. They would learn what happens when you fight the Honey Badgers. They would learn that some fights are not worth winning, no matter how superior your weapons are. They would learn that humanity did not become the galaxy's protector through strength or technology. They became protectors because they simply refused to let others suffer when they could do something about it. Opened his eyes and looked at the memorial garden one last time. 197 trees, 197 lessons in courage. "Rest well, friends," he said quietly. "The galaxy is safer because of you, that is all that matters." He stood up and walked away from the memorial, leaving the trees to stand watch over the galaxy they had helped protect. The honey badgers were small, outmatched, and absolutely relentless. And the galaxy was better for it. "Rest well, friends, you earned it." Sophie studied the tactical map. "What is next?" "Next we make them really angry," smiled. It was not a nice smile. "We are going after their command ship." Or ordered his fleet to maintain course. Let the humans waste fuel flying around in random patterns. When they finally attacked his main fleet, he would crush them with superior firepower and proper tactics. He had no idea that the humans had no intention of attacking his main fleet at all. Supreme Commander or of the Dominion watched them on his tactical display and laughed. 63 ships against his 200. It was not even a fair fight. He had no idea how right he was.